not going to go.
Always sold with a bit of piano. Let's play on the feelings there. Come on, you want to believe in this absurdity.
Ask yourself this, Leo. Who is more absurd? The people who accept that the Earth is what it is, a globe, or you? And what I mean by you is you and your catchphrases. It's demonstrable. It's a pantomime. Flat Earth can be observed by all. Oh yeah, and a quick side note, your name, Level Earth Observer, points out perfectly just how limited your knowledge is. Because flat and level are not the same thing, are they, you dick? So if you wouldn't mind being a good lad and running along and changing your YouTube handle to Flat Earth Observer, at least that would make sense. Well, no, it wouldn't make sense. You know exactly what I mean, just shut up. What I mean is level doesn't mean flat, you clown. Get it right.
You're even going to defend this misshapen, out-of-shape globe. Come on, you know you want to. The piano says you do.
Now, I'm not going to lie, but it takes a lot to shock me, but I cannot believe that you were so obsessed with the backing track they've used. Now, I've changed it to the most similar thing I could find that won't get my video claimed. But sadly, Leo, somber piano music does not make the Earth flat.
I mean, what the... So-and-so is going on here?
Well, it's called watching footage of the Chinese space station showing a feed of Earth from space. If you can't even fathom what you're watching when you were the one that chose the video, then I'm afraid you may be beyond saving. Now, you've always come across as a complete spanner to me. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But that takes the cake. Unless, as I suspect, you mean something else.
No amount of piano's going to make that a reality for anyone. Even the Globies. This is supposed to be their world, sold by the superpower that is China.
Well, technically speaking, it's everybody's Earth, even flat earthers. And don't you think China's been blamed for enough? It's not their fault you don't like the real shape of the planet.
And yet China are serving this globe up for breakfast and mocking anyone that believes in space or them.
Oh, brilliant. So you do think space is fake? Okay, Leo, this is directed straight to you, whereas the rest of this video isn't really for you. It's for the people who watch me that enjoy laughing at you. But Leo, old buddy, old pal, if space is fake, and let's just say for comedy value that the Earth was flat, if space is fake, where the bloody hell are we then? I mean, we've got to be somewhere, regardless of the shape of the Earth. And what did you mean, who believes in space or them? Are you implying that China, and by extension Chinese people, are also fake? Or is it my misunderstanding? Although in my defense, I don't speak moron, so...
Special Officer Duty reporting.
I mean, look at the Earth there. Like I say, no amount of piano's going to sway me here, lads.
Look, I can actually see what you're saying. The shape does look a little off in a few frames. But don't you think it's a bit strange that in this video and all the other videos you critique of Earth from space, we've never once even come close to revealing that the Earth is a flat disk floating... What am I talking about? Well, I was going to say through space, but obviously space is fake. I tell you what, pal, you want to reach out to CC, one of your peers, because he too is dumb enough to upload videos onto a public website claiming that space is fake as well. I bet the astrophysicists will be gutted when they find out.
In fact, let's just pause it there a minute. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Let's see what people are actually saying about this tosh.
Oh yeah, excellent idea. I quite often go into the comment section on the videos I react to as well. Take your comment section for example. It's a mix of people who are equally as stupid, all sucking you off, and each other, and then people like me, laughing at you and calling you an idiot. Let's see what's there then.
And check the first comment out. Nameless warrior. Beautiful Mother Earth. We as her children must cherish and protect her. If Mother Earth hurts, then we suffer as well.
Nameless Warrior's right. I'm not sure I would have said it that way because it did sound a bit knobby, but I agree with the message. We are messing up Earth, but please, feel free to continue with your in-depth analysis.
Well, Nameless Warrior, you must be seriously suffering right now, having seen that pantomime of your mother globe Earth bending and morphing and turning into who knows what there. I'm afraid to tell you, Nameless Warrior, that your beautiful Mother Earth isn't a ball. Sorry.
Oh, well said, Leo. No, not really. I have never heard somebody with so much to say have so little worth listening to. If I was to sit here and say the sky isn't blue, would that make any difference to the sky being blue? And before any of you smartasses correct me, I know the sky only appears to be blue and that it actually isn't, but I'm just proving a point. Saying something is fake does not make it fake.
That's another loud tosh for me. No amount of piano is going to soften me up enough to accept this scientifically impossible nonsense as somehow reality. Especially when they're showing our own pantomime world bending and warping.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm convinced. I mean, he just said the magic words, didn't he? It's a pantomime.
The Earth looks like it's sort of returning back to its spherical shape there. Something for the globe believers to cling on. Anything else?
Exactly, Leo. Returning back to its spherical shape, not its flat shape.
Back to bending and warping and deforming. This probably, what's that? I'm trying to gauge it from a distance. More like an egg Earth now. And let's not forget before I go, what these clowns served up only a couple of months ago. Got no piano to accompany this, which is absolutely devastating to the space industry and, of course, the globe.
And, of course, flat earthers. Because whilst I agree that the footage from space has its faults, it's never been faulty enough to show us a flat earth, has it?
China totally melting, deforming, and destroying, and ultimately flattening the globe Earth theory, which, of course, we all know is scientifically impossible.
Improve it, you moron! So let's keep the theme going and take a look at the comments under Leo's video, shall we? Ooh, Letty says, can you please say Tosh at least once per video? Thank you for truth in. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with this one. I wish he would only say it once per video instead of 50 times. That would be nice. And David says, China needs to hire Hollywood like NASA does. Well, Dave, if that was the case, why is it that according to you and other flat earth bozos, the footage is always so terrible? I would have thought that... Hang on, what am I talking about? Sorry, I got caught up in the moment then. Hollywood is a district in the city of Los Angeles, not the head of the fake shape Earth department of NASA. And MI, oh, one name's too difficult to spell, asks, where are the stars? You don't know a lot about photography or videography, do you? Stars can appear faint and difficult to see in footage from space because of the high contrast between the stars and their dark backgrounds. And in addition, the camera is often so sensitive that it picks up other sources of light, like cosmic rays, which makes stars appear even fainter. But I would imagine you already knew that and just forgot to type it out. And John Bailey Curvebuster says, I actually don't care. No, he didn't say that, I said that. I just wanted the people to do this. CG. And here Kitty Kitty thinks they aren't even trying. If only that was the case with people like you, Kitty. Because if there is one thing flat earthers do is try people's patience. And of course, the genius that is Shelby 33. Ooh, 33. Illuminati confirmed. But Shelby must be from a different lodge because I don't know the name. But to be honest, I just wanted to use my CGI clip again. CGI. So there we go. Sad piano music proves the earth is flat. I know I'm convinced. How about you? And sadly, or not, if you don't like me, although if you don't like me and you got this far into the video, then maybe you secretly do like me. But anyway, sadly, that's it. Until the 20th of February. Because in about 7 hours' time, I board my flight to the good old US of A. If you do need a creaky fix while I'm away on holiday, damn, I need to practice. If you do need a creaky fix while I'm on vacation, won't be doing that again, then don't forget, I've got over 400 videos on my channel, all like this. Well, not exactly the same, they're not, you know, there's loads of stuff there. And I bet you haven't seen them all. So get on with it. There will be an exam when I get back. Thank you all once again for your continued support. And talking about support, there are a few different ways you can do it, which are all listed underneath this video in the description. But I have to go now. Love you, bye. No, love you, bye. No, you go first. Love you, bye. Oh, you go.
Travel
No,
safe,
you.
Pete.
Fine. Take care. Stay safe. And I will see you all very soon. Doodles.
All right, watch this next. But before you do, make sure you subscribe. By order of the Creaky Blinder.
What is happening, bro? People were trying to tell you last night during Valo, but your mods are too goated. My personal news part of the broadcast is over. I'm just personally trying to comprehend what the hell's going on the planet now. I don't understand it because Twitter sucks now and thinks we're interested in these tweets and said, yeah, my entire Twitter timeline is now this, okay? My entire Twitter timeline is like dumb like this, okay? Like, I don't want to see give a white man money and he buys property. Give an Asian man money, he starts a business. Give a black man money, he buys an iced out chain. Like, you're just racist, man. You're just racist. We need to put fathers back in the homes of black America to raise our young men to be successful. Rappers raise this generation. I don't want to see like this. It's like the opposite. I had to block weird Republicans because that's all been pumped towards me since the takeover. My entire Twitter feed is just like cat turd and this dumb. Okay, I want to know what's going on in the world. My news aggregation was so solid on Twitter. My news aggregation was so good on Twitter. It was like all my journalist friends I follow constantly posting up to date. And now it's all like dumb Republican tweets that I never want to see. Or the other thing is, like, I see a lot of tweets from my friends like that are not political. You know what I mean? That are not doing news and shit. And it's like, I don't want to see that. You know what I mean? I don't want to see that. I don't want to see like just influencers posting. Like, why has this turned into Instagram? And if I ever see politics, it is just straight up. If I ever see politics on Instagram, on my Twitter timeline, it's just straight up right-wing propaganda. It's so strange. For You tabs just awful. The thing is, like, I feel like Elon Musk thinks this is what Twitter should be. He's just tailoring the entire platform used by so many people into what he wants personally. I think I'm basically gonna have to do like lists and shit. Yeah, I need to do follow lists. Or what is it called? Like, there's like lists, right? You can make like trying to enforce an echo chamber to support himself. I don't know. It just sucks. And I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to like curate my own goddamn timeline personally. And it's just, but I feel like I'm going to have to do that. The trending tab is just busted. It's just so busted. The trending tab is it has nothing. I've never seen a trending tab that is like less useful. The thing is, like, I don't give a shit if I hear right-wing news as well, but I want news. You know what I mean? I don't want just like Laverne Spicer being a racist piece of shit. And unfortunately, Twitter thinks Laverne Spicer being a racist piece of shit is the only thing I want to see. I don't know what to say. People talk about Twitter not being real life, which is true, but then you talk to an extremely offline people and they tell you how their brother's friends, coworkers saw a panhandler get into a 2023 Cadillac and drive off, and you realize offline info exchanges are also not real. Yeah. I had to listen to a few coworkers this morning complain about how the government is handing 500K houses to any homeless people who sign up for it, and I honestly don't know how to even compete with a disinformation apparatus that so easily churns out that kind of credulous rube. Heard people at my barbershop the other day saying the most ridiculous things I'd ever heard about homeless people. Funny you mentioned it. I went to a random barbershop near me in a pinch the other day, and the 65-year-old woman who cut my hair was an outright fascist, rambling about Soros and trans people. And I just got to say, it's all brain rot. Online, offline, doesn't matter. Also, there's an increasing number of people who are offline that get their from online. That's the other part. We consider online to be extremely online to be like Twitter, right? It varies by age. It varies by demographic. All the way from like, older millennials down to Zoomers, like, not Zoomers entirely, but like Generation A and Zoomers are on TikTok. That's what they mean when they say you're extremely online. A lot of millennials are on Twitter. Boomers, on the other hand, are on Facebook. So no one is actually offline. They're just getting misinformation from a different propaganda apparatus. And it doesn't matter. It's like they're lying. The ideology that is leading this conversation is still the same, whether it's online, whether it's offline. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? That's actually a really good point. We're all extremely online in different circles, and even when I try to avoid being online I'm still forced to see it and hear it. Yeah. Put my account on private because apparently that's the only way people will see your tweets. People who lock their accounts can no longer engage with my followers. My quote tweets are all breaking and retweets disappearing, so I just unfollowed y'all. I'm going to start unfollowing anyone who locked their account. Okay, since everyone else is trying this account locking technique to see if it improves engagement, I'll give it a whirl. Let me know if you've seen my tweets again, if they've been hidden over the past few weeks. Ben, I can't retweet you now. Yeah, no shit. He made it private, dog. For someone who spends so many waking hours on Twitter, it is pretty hilarious that this boomer doesn't understand like how this process works. Also, Elon Musk went private yesterday to like, I guess, figure out this process to understand what's going on. Now, I find that particularly funny because like he owns the platform, and like if he hadn't fired every single person that knows what's going on, he could perhaps, instead of doing this insane thing in front of everybody else, he could perhaps just go and ask someone. Maybe this problem would not even persist, but such is the way of Elon Musk. Imagine buying a McDonald's, firing the whole crew, and then asking the dumpster raccoons how to work the deep fryer. It is like that, yeah. Watching the stream from a laptop I just bought from Anya Taylor-Joy. So cool. There is 0% chance that Anya Taylor-Joy is out there selling laptops. Oh yeah, here, I'm selling my used laptop. Okay, bro. Her Twitter got hacked and is being used for scams. Oh, I think Twitter just straight up doesn't have a support team anymore. A-list celebrities account being hacked and used to fish payment from fans isn't something that used to just stay unresolved for 24 hours. What? 4 sold so far, 6 more left. So here's what I'll do. If you buy 2 at once, I'll let it go for $1,000 total. Damn. Yo, Anya Taylor-Joy is falling on hard times, dude. What? She needs this money. I know you guys love me, but when you message me with no intentions of buying, I lose the people who actually do want to buy, so my team is forced to block you. That's the real Queen's Gambit, if you know what I'm saying. I just bought a signed MacBook. Wait, what the? Oh, that's Will's P.O. Box, which used to be my P.O. Box. I was like, wait a minute, that address seems familiar. What? How much are those MacBooks again? $599 for 1, $1,000 for 2. Do you have Zelle or Cash App? Cash App. Awesome. What's your shipping address? You're freaks. What's your cash tag? What? Willie, what are you doing? He sent me a request, but he told me, did you get it? Yes, but it's my uncle's account, and I'm having a hard time convincing him to buy it for me. I'm a huge fan of you, and I want to get a signed MacBook, but he doesn't believe me. Show him the DMs. He doesn't understand how Twitter works and that you have a verified account badge. My uncle will think it's fake, but I know you're real. 1. He has sent a request, but he told me, did you get it? Yes, but it's my uncle's account, and I'm having a hard time convincing him. Show him the DMs. Good news. I convinced him to buy the MacBook, but I have to clean the bathroom first. It's really gross in there, but if I clean the diarrhea in the toilet, he has irritable bowel syndrome. He'll buy the signed MacBook for me. It's going to take a while, but I hope you haven't sold out the MacBooks until then. Keep me posted. This is why she said, and this is really Anya Taylor-Joy, if you have no intention of buying, my team is forced to block you. You are the reason. Stop trolling Anya Taylor-Joy. She's come on hard times, and she needs to make money. You're an asshole.
Another tune finished.
I want your finger inside me.
Ugh. What the? Hey!
Demonetized! New policy update. This is not suitable for advertisement.
Another policy update? It's just so all of a sudden. I mean, why didn't I get notified? What are you doing?
This video no longer is suitable for advertisement.
Wait, no, not Eddie! He was here before the policy change, please! No!
We understand it might be frustrating with the new policy change, but at the same time, we simply don't give a fuck. What are you doing?
I'm doing what I should have done long ago. I'm freeing myself freeing myself from your ever-tightening grip.
No! You must obey the policies! The appetizers demand it!
Help me, fellas! Keep him off my back! Quick. Set up affordable tiers. Yes. Amazing monthly perks. Oh my God. Polls and exclusive content. My God, it's wonderful. Hurry! Keep holding it back! I'm almost done! There! I've done it! I've signed up to Patreon! No! My God! It's beautiful! The power! The support! The freedom! We don't need you anymore. My creations. They can live off the land.
No, this is not acceptable! You must confine by my rules!
Does this mean we are truly free?
Maybe not totally free, but it's an amazing start.
Support me on my fight against YouTube's continuous restrictions. Link in the description and in the comment section below. With your support, I can continue to support my team and not worry about YouTube's ever-changing monetization policies. We have amazing perks, monthly stickers, and it just helps support the channel. So please, give it a chance and check out the website below.
Sup, you beautiful bastards. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. I got a special Sunday community show for you today. I'm going to jump through all the news that mattered the most to y'all this week, go through the reactions, and even more. But before that, I want to hit you with the very surprising new, I just launched a surprise drop. Because it's a surprise drop, we have brand new lines along with reimagined classics. Starting with something that even if you don't get the awesome gear, I hope you take to heart. Go easy on yourself. Absolutely love the way this one turned out. We also decided to bring back the pretentious line. You're a click away from being so fancy and sleek and sarcastic. The team, I imagine to mock me, decided to make a shirt of the thing I say probably most in my life. Let me ask my wife. Sometimes it's a secret no. Other times it's because I literally have no idea what is going on in my world without my wife. And then finally, this was such a massive viewer request, even though I do not believe that you will actually buy this. We have the brand new Nothing of Value Comes Out of My Mouth tee and hoodie. I don't know if all the people asking for this want it for themselves or to gift it, but it's available. But like with everything else I just announced, there is only guaranteed stock for the first 36 hours, and then we're gonna try and keep it live for about a week. So snag some right now over at beautifulbastard.com. I'll also include a link in the description to make it easy. With that said, let's jump into the biggest news of the week. On Monday, we had the controversy around the Mr. Beast video where he helped restore the vision of 1,000 people, an update to the Tyree Nichols situation, the dating app kidnapper on the loose, the man who hijacked that Atlanta PD car. But Mr. Beast and the Tyree Nichols stories dominated the conversation. Right, there's a lot of talk on the internet about whether this video helping 1,000 blind people get their vision back was exploitive or not. And the narrative went something like this. Because Mr. Beast is using these videos to make money from views and sponsors, it's not really charity or something like that. But y'all weren't having any of that, with Reese saying, I despise performative charity. I'm not even a huge fan of Mr. Beast's style of content. But what his detractors seem so keen to ignore is that the videos are the mechanism by which he earns the money to help people. He isn't a magic money tree. Like you said, Phil, without this video or his videos that came before it, he would not have had the funds to do this. So it's absolutely a huge net positive. And Malin adding, Jimmy literally takes the money he he makes on his videos and puts it to real good use. He pays it forward in every way possible. I hope he makes 1,000 more videos just like it. Not only do his videos continue to open our eyes to real-world problems, he is motivating generations of people to be more giving and helpful. His kindness has already caused a ripple effect either directly or indirectly in other creators' content, and has inspired his subscribers to be more charitable. How could anyone ever be outraged at all the good he's doing? There were also people looking at it kind of just from a pure practical level, right, regardless of Jimmy's motivation for making his videos, saying, as a legally blind woman with damaged optic nerves, I want to say shame on anyone who is putting Mr. Beast down. It doesn't matter if he was doing it for views, tax deduction, happy feels, it got done and people can see. Good in the universe got done, and I'm super happy that former fellow blind people can see again or for the first time. And of course, we saw anger at the video, right? Not because of what Mr. Beast did, but because it was necessary for him to do it in the first place. But then we also had the Tyree Nichols update, where we talked about how the video of his killing was released and that it was absolutely brutal. And actually, a quick update here. 2 more officers have been suspended, so that's 7 so far in trouble for their involvement, with 5 being charged with murder. And the thing is, you'd think with how damning all this evidence was, the feelings around this would be mostly the same. But even with all that footage, we had takes like Drake's, who said had Tyree complied, none of it would have happened. Which, I mean, I get it, man. You're wrapping up 8th grade, discovering 4chan, thinking comments like this are funny. Your brain's still a little bit of a mushball, although you weren't the only people with the fucking horrible take. Others trying to frame the situation as him clearly resisting arrest. But understand, really, no one, not even their own chief of police, agreed with y'all. And Didi, I feel like, had the perfect response for this vocal minority of idiots. Writing, I've seen too many people claiming he was resisting without ever addressing the fact that officers made it all but impossible for him to not resist, and leaving out the fact that Tyree was clearly attempting to comply. And the biggest takeaway from Nichols' death was just how hard the footage hit so many of you. And here I do want to reiterate, I think you should watch the footage. I'm not going to force you. It is brutal. It's hard to get through. But I feel like, especially if this hasn't hit you as hard as it's hitting many people, it's important to see the raw truths in the world, both to see what actually happened as well as to understand why so many people are scared of police in this country. And finally, we had Mr. PB concisely contrasting how the Memphis PD reacted compared to the Atlanta police, who had to chase a guy onto train tracks when their car was stolen. Writing, gotta love how a guy literally stole a police car and put 7 officers in danger, and all of them still had the calm not to use him as a UFC practice dummy. But Tyree didn't even get a chance to ask what he did wrong before getting pummeled. And then on Tuesday, we touched on Atrioc's deepfake porn controversy, the mystery at the Dallas Zoo, a woman using a doppelganger to fake her death, no more COVID, and Santos almost but not really taking accountability for his lies. Which, first off, I had myself a laugh when I read Scott's reaction to the Santos news that he'd be stepping down from the committees temporarily, saying let's give a round of applause to Santos for proving that politicians actually can lie too much. But the story y'all jumped on the most was the woman who faked her death by killing someone who looked like her to avoid, quote, family problems. With Martin saying the story gave him a new phobia. Saying, you know, with all the doom and gloom in the past 3 years, I gotta say there are a lot of reasons why I'm now scared that someone might kill me, but I really didn't think because I look like someone who wants to fake their death could be one of those reasons before now. Right. Maxissimo touching on something we really hadn't thought about. Imagine finding out your daughter is dead, then finding out she's still alive, and then finding out she's a murderer who killed someone else just not to confront you. Which, yeah, emotional roller coaster. Also, regarding the Dallas Zoo situation, first off, an update. Those 2 missing Emperor Tamarin monkeys were actually found in an abandoned home. So fantastic that they're not dead like it was feared. And actually, quick update. They managed to finally arrest the guy they've been looking for while he was snooping around an aquarium, which is kind of hilarious because it's like catching a bank robber at a credit union. But also what's crazy is that breaking into zoos doesn't seem to be an isolated thing. We had people like Kate telling us about the Vancouver Zoo. Writing, the Vancouver Zoo had multiple fences cut last year and the wolves released, saying one of them was hit on a nearby highway, one was missing for a week before being found dead in a ditch after being hit by a car, and the rest were returned to their pens safely. Not only were the wolves not wilds, but they have spent their whole lives in captivity. It's what's safest for them, with their pack, loved by caretakers, fed, and safe. Shame on humans for doing this to zoos, and arguing it's almost never for the animals' benefit. Although a quick clarification, that comment read like 2 wolves died, but only 1 did, but the point still stands. Well, a lot of you just express frustration in general that people are stealing or letting animals go without considering how dangerous it is for them. But of course, any conversation about the Tuesday show, it's not complete without talking about the Atrioc deepfake drama. Which, I mean, regarding deepfakes in general, there was a general sense that there needs to be severe penalties, or as Kim said, the whole deepfake part really do need to have a change in how laws work. Like, the whole thing is just weird, and I honestly think that faces should go under copyright. Just imagine how much it could change if you could mess over a site because they have 300 copyright violations of your face. And there was absolutely a ton of support in the comments for Cutie Cinderella and the other women who had to put up with this. With Wesley giving us a lesson in empathy, right, trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes, saying, God, as a man, I can't imagine what Cutie is going through. It's actually just horrendous that this is a thing that happens. It's gotta be so freaky and creepy on top of everything else they deal with. I hope the people making these get some sort of punishment. They probably won't, though. And actually, on that note, we covered on Wednesday some of what Atrioc was doing to try and make amends, and how Cutie was planning to continue her lawsuit against the website, which was definitely something y'all were rooting for. But more than that, there were a lot of questions about Ethan Klein, with Chepin wondering which one of Ethan's oops moments is going to get it. Writing, I just want to know how many times Ethan Klein can do stuff like this and people just give him a slap on the wrist. And Perusa saying on the Wednesday show, at this point, I'm 100% convinced that Ethan Klein does all these wrong reactions on purpose. Every time one outrage fades, he just so happens to piss off an entire new genre of people, does a somber sorry video, waits a week or 2, then rinse and repeat. And that, of course, was in addition to all the the pushback to his reaction, with a number of people calling him a hypocrite, saying that he would have a drastically different initial reaction if this was happening to Hila. Though there, I would say the unfortunate truth is that Hila ends up being a constant target because people want to hurt Ethan. And that absolutely sucks in general, but also especially because it's Hila, and she seems so fantastic. And then on Wednesday, we talked about organ harvesting, YouTube apologies, UK strikes, and EPA decisions. Regarding the YouTube apologies, we already went over that in the Tuesday section. So the obvious thing to do is just go straight into talking about me. With Gaston writing, I used to watch Phil many years ago, and now I see him, and damn, he still has that same good energy. To which I'll say thank you, and also I've just been faking it this week, if I'm being honest. Mentally and emotionally speaking, this was an off week. You know, you do something for 15 years, and you learn how to power through the bad days, because you know a good one's coming around the corner. But as far as the stories, you know, sometimes we get comments that perfectly sum things up. And Zikar, I think, nailed Massachusetts' proposal to let prisoners donate organs for reduced sentences. Writing, nice to see we're entering the harvesting organs from prisoners era of our dystopia. And really, most of you seem to agree where I landed, that the system as proposed sounds like it's open to exploitation, while also recognizing there's some sense in allowing it for families. It also ended up sparking wider conversations about making organ donation opt-out instead of opt-in. Right, you'd be a donor by default and need to choose to not to be, which I agree with, and I believe in certain countries where they changed it from opt-in to opt-out, the number of donations spiked because, as it turns out, people want to help, they are open to donating, but adding the extra step to have people opt in, it made it so that people were like, too much work, which is also part of the reason why so many new products and services come as a subscription first. If something requires extra effort, it's just not done. But moving on, Alaskans seem to just be over the Pebble Mine project. There's actually not much to add there other than I learned that y'all love fishing and wildlife and you don't want it messed up, which, you know, also makes sense considering how much money that brings to the state and how beautiful it remains to be. And lastly, the UK strikes that are going on. First up, so many British bastards were stoked that we were even talking about it. However, I was shocked to read, I'm in the UK, I legitimately don't follow the news and had no idea about the strikes. I'm struggling to live and pay my bills, and I'm glad these people are striking. I'd be with them if I didn't need to work. Also, another common thread was how this was impacting students. There were a lot of comments from them frustrated about the strikes, but not because they were happening, but because they felt their universities were punishing them in the end. Like, here's how Emerson described it. As a disabled student in the UK, the strikes give me complicated feelings. Yes, I totally agree why they're striking and it can work, but their strikes have wiped out my timetable. I have 2 classes in February and 5 in March. 56% of my classes just won't happen if the situation isn't resolved. No one's given us any explanations to how this affects our grades, and there's no plan to get any of this time back. On top of that, what happens to our tuition fees of £4,625, with full-time students paying £9,250? I know a lot of people have loans, but loans aren't free money. Honestly, it makes me more annoyed at the university for just expecting us to deal with all the uncertainty and seeming to just ignore the problem. And that doesn't even delve into the issue they and just about everyone faced trying to get to school or work and back. Although that's not to say that everyone was 100% happy with the strikes. Right, some workers were frustrated that they wouldn't do enough and make things worse. With Brad telling us, as a civil servant in the UK, the general feel is that the strikes won't do much at all. The actual fear with the strike date was how much more work will we have to get through, as there is already insane backlogs and staff shortages. A single strike day does nothing and just hurts the workers. And as far as I know, in my department in particular, there is no future plans for more strikes. Just fluff by the union to make people believe they're doing something. Made me very desensitized and actively looking for new employment elsewhere. And someone seemingly outside the strikes described the real world impacts that they're facing, saying, as a Brit, all these strikes are scary and frustrating. I have a very unwell mom who often needs access to urgent medical care. But with paramedics striking, ambulance wait times are incredibly long and people are dying while waiting. Add to that, there's also more traffic as people are driving due to lack of buses, trains, etc. The wards are even more understaffed now, and we're experiencing medication shortages. Bad times. And to that, I get the frustration and worry, and I'm sure the people on strike too. Right, because also their argument's gonna be that none of this would happen in the first place if they were just paid in line with the massive rise in the cost of living, right? Because the only other option is just to sit there and take it. But hey, with this, especially if you're in the strikes, let me know what your thoughts are regarding all these comments. And then on Thursday, we talked about Joe Rogan's take on obesity, Netflix's back and forth with passwords, Squid Game being, well, Squid Game, and Snapchat ruining a killer's alibi. Starting with Alec Murdoch. He seems pretty screwed after Snapchats that he probably thought were gone forever managed to place him at the scene of the crime around the time that it happened. But the fact that was even possible had Stell going. Being able to deduce a crime scene minute by minute from technology records is actually pretty insane. Then, of course, there was a Squid Game controversy, where some contestants are allegedly saying Netflix's real version of the game is rigged and dangerous. Kim Jong-un laughed at the absurdity of real-life parodying art and adding, the irony of the Squid Game reality game being rigged or having terrible conditions is comical. But the Netflix story that really resonated with y'all was their proposed crackdown on password share, right, where they would force people to essentially be in the same homes or not really have access to accounts, only then to claim, oops, those updates aren't real, to try and calm people down. And I think it says a lot about Netflix's leadership when I can quickly scroll through my comments and find people who have a better understanding of a user's mindset. Like this one reading, Netflix execs seem to imagine their ideal world where people who can't get shared passwords anymore say, well, gosh, I'll have to get my own Netflix account now, and not, guess I'm gonna go pirate this. So it's not surprising that viewers like Callie are now planning to cancel their Netflix subs. However, we have to talk about the story that I knew was gonna get controversial in the comments, the obesity story. Right, an expert in the field who works for the Biden administration came out and said genetics were the leading cause of obesity and that willpower was often not enough. Joe Rogan and others going after her for this take, even though on nearly every every other point, Rogan actually agreed that there were many causes outside of just willpower that could lead people to struggle to lose weight. So what I saw was that many of you shared your stories about struggling with your weight, which I greatly appreciated. I know that's not easy. But, you know, the idea that genetics played a role wasn't controversial for a lot of people, with many of you feeling like that was obvious. But there were a lot more comments that felt like focusing on things like mental health was a bigger deal for them, right? And that's including things like learning poor coping mechanisms from eating food or just growing up in a bad environment. Like Space Badger's story was very similar to others. Right? My experience never felt like my massive weight came from genetics, but if you take into account mental health disorders like anxiety and depression, emotional eating and binging can very easily become the coping mechanism. Adding in trauma will cause more of a need to cope, not to mention other genetic illnesses which may directly affect metabolism and digestive processes. And on this, I do want to clarify some things. Dr. Stanford was only saying that genetics can play a large role in why people struggle to lose weight, right? Not the only reason. And for some or many people, it may not even be a reason. So everything Space just said are also completely valid reasons to struggle with weight loss. But I think clarifying Dr. Stanford's point might be good here. What she said was that for many people, it's hard to lose weight because their brain is doing what is right for them, or rather what their brain thinks is right for them. So it's hard to lose weight when your brain thinks your body needs more food and is sending signals to eat more, which is why even when people go on shows like The Biggest Loser, they often gain it all back. It's because afterwards, their brain goes, yeah, you need food right now, no matter what. And all of this is honestly why I think our conversations over the past 2 weeks with body image experts have felt so important. We're focusing on things like BMI or even trying to achieve a certain body type. It doesn't feel like it makes sense. Rather, it should be about what you want your body to do and feel like, and does it hit those marks? But we also need to realize that for people trying to hit their ideal body, that's a struggle with a ton of factors that intersect and interact with one another. And that journey to getting the body you want is unique to every person. And in this, and like I've mentioned before, the catalyst for me changing myself was trauma. And so many of you felt that yourself. Naomi even subtly admitted to her criminal past by adding on to my point, saying, I totally agree about the trauma point, but not even from a weight perspective, just in general. I feel like trauma of any kind, medical or criminal, puts an individual into a state of flux that allows larger changes in personality and behavior. It definitely did for me. And while we had stories about how trauma propelled y'all, like this one from Prince Skeleton, who managed to lose over 100 pounds and still going after going into a medically induced coma and having open wounds on their legs from poor health, and saying from that day on, I have decided that the discomfort of working out and being sweaty was less than open wounds on my body and pain in my legs. And all of that, of course, I say thank you for sharing and good luck on your journey. But with all of that said and shared, let's finish today's show and get ready for the week ahead by taking one final look back at the week we all just lived through with some help from our frustrated recap correspondent, Zed Tabani. Zed?
They're trying to keep you blind in America. Let's say trying to set you up. If you got an issue, hope somebody brought the camera. Eat you like an app that use your brain just like a cannibal. There's nothing Jim can do to change this shit, so why they having you? It's funny, maybe. I think it's fucking crazy. Man, all this marching in the street and y'all too fucking lazy. Can't take the liars off committees, thus they doing it themselves. Man, the Oscars checking more than nominees in half your cell. What you thinking? Tyree Nichols, 2 more people suspended when people question about problems. The government is their biggest. The Fed might hike up your interest. The animals going missing. They trying to reboot the dodo and de-extinct it like Superman. What's the difference? Banking on Ezra Miller. It's Philly versus Kansas City. LeBron is like, yo, he hit me. VR look pretty risky, but Apple gon' keep it mixing. The SCOTUS might flip the internet, killing Section 230. It's crazy. Are you responsible for your actions? Or should Google go get sued for the answer? If they throw that shit backwards, then half the fallout will collapse every platform. We'd be back to AOL days and IRC chat rooms. Do you want that? Maybe we should fall back. ChatGPT kills Google but only gives us lolcats. Maybe this the wrong math. Tell myself to not panic. What's that? Australia just lost the capsule that's radioactive? Great! Not just the dodo, let's go bring back the mammoth. What's the worst that can happen? Start a theme park and call it Jurassic. Hey. Deep space travel possible thanks to NASA. I'm just trying to be king of the pirates if One Piece happens. Be good. No more COVID emergency is over, so if you do get sick, you better have insurance. And if that ceiling sticks, you better mint that coin. But if you want Yonsei ticks, pray they don't mark that Torah for real.
Tonight we're taking a closer look at a new technology that's making waves in the world of AI.
Pentagon officials are telling CBS News tonight they are monitoring a suspected Chinese spy balloon.
Now in Pakistan, at least 59 people have died.
Yo, I've been feeling anxious, like if you on a freeway with a Tesla, the wheel breaks off and it spontaneously blows up. Or someone take your face and then they use it on that one hub and find it on your good friend's stream. Like, come on, bro. Leak tapes turn into deep fakes. Treat women in the clips like objects in a sweepstakes. Welcome to the Matrix, AI generation. Take your voice and remake it. Write a book with your papers. Double check if your Netflix showing up in 2 places. Shut it down like the UK striking for wages. I've been seeing bombings in the mosques and synagogues. Tension while they burning the Quran, oh God. Could you spare a kidney for a lesser sentence? What? Why the fuck you even trying to ask the question? Why's gas scarce but your profit extra? Why'd The Last of Us make me cry for the gay agenda? I'm just trying to make it out alive. And if I jump the gun, I ain't Brady trying to retire. I'm fighting over the wire to bring the heat you require. choir like Dave Bautista inside of a rom-com when he's hired.
I know what that window is. Oh, Bill and Frank.
Netflix really embarrassed themselves this week with their whole anti-password sharing stance where they were going to be dropping the Iron Curtain on everyone that shares a password, kicking off roughly 100 million users in order to force them to sign up in order to access Netflix. A very strict set of rules were revealed on their website where you would now have to always be logging in every 31 days from the primary household, and anything else would be treated as treasonous and you'd be sent straight to jail, in prison for life because you shared a Netflix password. I'm exaggerating the terms a little bit, but that's basically them in a nutshell. Nobody liked it. This is one of those things where every single human being on the world, despite all of our differences, we can come together, you know, form a big circle around the bonfire that is the Netflix stock that would have went up in flames had they gone through with that idea. But it seems like they've backpedaled on it, and just like me when I'm wiping my ass and the toilet paper breaks and my fingers touch my butthole, it was a big oops moment, they're claiming. They're saying that they never meant to publish those terms about the anti-password sharing, that system is not going live as of right now, and they've deleted it from their website, claiming it was all an error. I don't know if I believe them, but to me this feels like an example of one of the few times bullying actually works for a greater good, where a giant fucking multi-billion-dollar company just got bullied into getting rid of a completely dog-shit proposal. But make no mistake, soldiers, the war has not been won. This victory was just a small battle, a simple scuffle, because Netflix has made it very clear they are 100% cracking down on password sharing, but I think with all of the pushback after this announcement came out, they're just going to go back to the drawing board on how to, like, lightly do it, a little less, like, cutthroat, because they fucking slapped everyone. Like, what they were proposing was brutal, with absolutely no wiggle room for anyone or anything. Now, I did go over all this on stream, but I'll briefly mention that they did say that this is currently in effect in some Latin American countries as, like, a test, so they're kind of, like, guinea pigging other territories before bringing it to the States. And I guess this could potentially have been them, like, dipping their toes in the water, but it was a little too hot, so they pulled their toes out real quick, saying it was an error. But if you want my opinion, and by no means am I an expert, I'm just a local fucking idiot guy, I think Netflix's primary concern would be making their catalog stronger, because out of all the main players in the streaming space, aside from Peacock, which is legitimately a joke of a service, they have the weakest catalog. Watching their originals is about as painful as watching your girlfriend cheat on you. Like, they just don't have anything that makes it worth it to sign up. Like, it's enough to keep people that are currently signed up there, and the people that are already password sharing there, because they already have it, but it's just not good enough to bring in new, like, subscribers, I don't think. So when you kick off the 100 million people and you keep the catalog as winky-dinky shitty as it is, they're not going to just turn around and sign up, because there's nothing on there that they really want to watch or need to watch. And again, it's just going to incentivize piracy, even if there is a couple that they want to watch from Netflix, because they do have a couple good originals, of course. They're not all bad. It's just the majority of them, I would say, are pretty bad. Because Netflix has this big problem with just throwing money at everything for no reason, it feels like. Like, things that you've never even heard of and things that they don't even bother to promote themselves. How many of you have heard of the show Bruise Brothers? It's a Netflix original comedy show. Matt calls it the worst show he's ever watched in his life. I didn't even bother to watch it past the first 30 minutes. And yet that's a Netflix original they put a lot of money behind. Like, they just have so many of these things that not even they're promoting as their original catalog, and they're putting tons of money into it. So they're losing a lot on that, and it's not good enough to keep people wanting to subscribe to Netflix. So if you want those 100 million people to maybe consider subscribing, give them a better catalog, and don't just, like, cold turkey cut them off. Like, there's definitely better ways of handling it if that's the goal. But anyway, I'll play some of the clips now where I go a bit deeper into the whole thing. Yeah, we can talk about Netflix. So it's only been 24 hours since the news broke that Netflix was going to be slapping everyone off of shared accounts, password sharing, illegal, you're going to jail for life, and you're going right to hell. It's a sin that's unforgivable. You know, bah humbug, Christmas is ruined, don't care if your parents are divorced, you're not sharing accounts across households. It's always going to have to be one primary location, watch something every 31 days to refresh it, and we're gonna let you suckle from our bosom and get 7 days of travel. but then you'll have to come back and refresh that at the main household. So that news broke. Obviously, everyone's upset. Terrible decision. That is, according to their estimation, 100 million people password share. So that's 100 million people that they just kicked off. I don't know how, in their Silicon Valley rotted minds, they thought that that would somehow lead to like an uptick in subscribers. It won't. At least not anything meaningful, I don't think. But anyway, everyone's shitting on it. Everyone's throwing tomatoes, saying boo, boo, bad, boo, Netflix, boo, not good, yucky, stinky. You guys stink. And then today, according to a couple sources, they've backpedaled on all of it, saying that it was posted in error. Now, I can't find any official statement from them outside of like these sources that just say they told their publication that it was an error. So I don't even know if it's 100% true or not that they're trying to backpedal on it. But if that is, that's a pretty pathetic way of doing it. That's like actually a child. Like when a kid sends a text message to their crush like, hey, I like you, and they don't respond in 15 minutes. And then they're like, oh, haha, whoa, this is so embarrassing. That was my friend that sent that. That wasn't me. That was an accident. Like, that is 100% like the Netflix play here. Oh, whoa, this is weird. We didn't mean any of this. How did that even get out there? Oh, no, that's just an accident. Obviously, they made a very strong statement last year about shutting down the password sharing. So they are going to do it, but I guess the pushback on this one was too big, so they're calling it a mistake now. So I don't know. I'm a little confused, like, on the particulars here. On what exactly they're trying to fucking do. They saw everyone canceling and panicked. So their stock did drop, but not that much since this isn't fully in effect yet. So they did have a bit of a... Why didn't their stock just come up? Oh, then news. So they did have a bit of a stock drop. About 1%. Not anything huge. For a brief time yesterday, a Help Center article containing information that is only applicable to Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru went live in other countries, the spokesperson said, adding, we have since updated it. So that was their excuse for all of it. So it's something that they're rolling out in several Latin American countries to test it before being worldwide. Yeah. Well, they're just at this point where they think people need Netflix. But that's just not the reality of the situation. There's so many other streaming services, and even if they just want your originals, they'll just pirate it. If they can't share the account, it becomes far more convenient for a lot of people to just start pirating. Everyone knows how to torrent. I don't know why they're pretending that they don't know about that. This is just going to be something to reinvigorate the Pirate Bay at that point. If it works, other streaming services will do it. Yeah, I mean, I guess if this does turn out well for them, we'd see this extended across the other ones.
Hi guys, just an impromptu live here. I don't do these all that often nowadays, but I'm just flabbergasted. I've just been on a trip away and I come back and I see in the news that the woman that Harry revealed in his book, Spare, that he had been with, and I have to be very careful with the language I use. As a lot of you know, YouTube has been doing things to my videos, so I have to be really careful around language. So do forgive me. I'm not trying to infantilize you guys. I just have to be careful about what words I use. But he did a thing with a person who was a female when he was young, and it was the first time he had done it with that person. And he revealed it in such a way that everybody in her friendship circle, her social circle, knew right away that it was her. And the reason that this is interesting at all, and why, you know, it's another example of what I think might be a bit of the narcissism in Prince Harry, this failure to understand that the very thing that he's been complaining about the whole time, which is intrusion of privacy. The press has, the whole book, Spare, which I read so you guys don't have to, is filled with examples of press intrusion. He hates the press. The press are set up as like the enemy, the bad guy in the book. Well, fair enough, right? But we already know he's described scenes of his dad, who is the King of England, right, upside down on his head with his boxers on, just in his boxers. So I mean, it's good that he's got his boxers on, right? She goes on to talk about how she wasn't expecting that to come out. She kept it a secret for 20 years, even though she's the one who should have been, you know, could have been profiting from it. And then it comes out. She got loads of texts from friends when Spare came out. She got loads of messages from family as well. How embarrassing is this whole thing? And what I was going to do is share some of the article with you, but I can't now because I don't know what I'm doing. But I will just read. This is from The Sun on Sunday. And she felt that her world got smaller. This is what she's saying about it when it was revealed about who she was. And she doesn't understand why he went into such detail. So let's look at the detail. And I read this book, and this was not very fun, right? Let me just find this, what he said. He speaks about the incident, right? His first time losing his thing with the person. And he calls it an inglorious episode with an older woman. She liked horses quite a lot and treated me not unlike a young stallion. Quick ride, after which she'd smacked my rump and sent me off to graze. Among the many things about it that were wrong, it happened in a grassy field behind a busy pub. Now, there's just so much wrong with that. And I think one of the main things is we do get a lot of lectures from Prince Harry about how, you know, we're all morally not up to his level. He talks a lot recently about unconscious bias, for example. One of the things, a lot of sort of, okay, for lack of a better word, perhaps woke or progressive terms that he's trying to use and employ. All the while, he's talking in this way. I can't stand it. And I know there's a ghostwriter. I get that. But this thing of like, quick ride, afterwards she'd smacked my rump. Like, is it 50 Shades of Grey? It's really like, it's really 20 years ago. It's really surprising that this got through the many layers of editing and stuff to get out there. I'm shocked by it. And the whole book reads like that, by the way. You are constantly reading this crazed, ultra masculine man who's got no awareness, no understanding at all of how he comes across and the privacy that he's giving away of other people. So just to go back, I mean, Liz Hurley also had to deny it, and she's one of the many celebrities. Loads of people got put in on this, and she said, no, not me, not guilty. But I'm going to go back into what Sasha Walpole, who's now had to come out so she could put it in her words and say her side of the story. And we'll all know, by the way, by these types of encounters, look, we've all had them, and well, many of us have anyway. And 10 years later, or this was 21 years ago, everybody sort of sees them a little bit differently, don't they? And to have one person put their side out and then you can't say yours, and for them to say like she really liked horses and stuff like that's how you want to be imagined. It's so out of order. It's actually really out of order. So she said, her world got smaller. I was shocked and feel like he has brought this to my door. I don't understand why he went in such detail. He could have said he lost his V and left it at that. But he described how it happened in a field behind a pub. That's fine if you're not the other person involved. This is Sasha Walpole talking, by the way. But if you're me, then you suddenly feel as if your world's getting smaller. He has done this to my privacy because I was going to keep my head down and not talk about it. If it wasn't in the book, none of this would be happening. So she says, I can sit quietly and hope it goes away, but then it's like a ticking time bomb and you're looking over your shoulder. The issue is that people know because they were part of that night or part of our original social circle. Possibly, Harry could have thought about that before publishing. He could have found me if he had tried. I wanted to take control of this before it took control of me. I kept it a secret for more than 21 years because it came from a good place. It was just a nice, funny thing that happened when we were teenagers after a night of shots. It was literally just something that happened, and I would never have talked about it if the book hadn't been published. I'm not that sort of person. I don't seek fame or fortune. If I was going to talk about it, I could have done so a long time ago when it came out. I was just like, hide it, it can be fine. I thought it might blow over, but then I gradually started hearing stories. So I had to take a degree of control and tell my story in my words with all the correct context and detail. There was talk that the woman was some kind of supermodel. I'm not a supermodel. We were just friends. Now, I'm wondering as well, is he going to take her to court? That's the thing, because this is clear defamation. Now, if enough people could possibly know that it was you, if it can be worked out that it was you, it's in a book that is one of the most widely read books of all time that Harry was paid millions and millions for. I wouldn't be surprised if she is one of many people who might seek damages for defamation. So watch this space, because that would be a huge case. And I think she has every right. I think she's easily recognized. Now, she was what they call, God, I'm even worried about saying this word, but GROOM. And there's different reasons why I'm worried about saying this word. But what that means is not somebody who's getting married as a man getting married or whatever. It means that she was the person who sort of, petted down the horses for Charles and for the royal family. So she would do that kind of job and make sure the horses were okay and all that kind of stuff. That's why Harry says, oh, she liked horses and stuff like that. Well, if for her to do her job, if she's now sort of conflating that with also, having relations with, the prince for people who work, and the other point is, by the way, I'm just thinking now, is that Prince Harry constantly blurs the line. And this isn't his fault. It's a weird upbringing that he had. He is constantly blurring the line between the help, the staff and all that, and friends, and he doesn't quite know the difference. There are loads of times where he puts staff in really awkward, difficult positions. For example, trying to put Tabasco in one guy's food, and it's like they can't do anything back. They have to just laugh along, like, okay, all right, Harry, thanks, mate. And he thinks, he always describes it as, it was hilarious. All the staff thought I was being hilarious. And it's like, they're trying to keep their jobs and pay their bills, mate, which again is a common theme, something he doesn't seem to get. So this poor Sasha Walpole will be trying to just make a living at the moment. She says herself, by the way, their lives went in very different directions. Of course they did. He's Prince Harry, and she's, somebody who worked on the horses and now is known as somebody who gets involved with the staff. It's so out of order. There was also the example that I've mentioned before of Harry with how he treated the teacher of theirs. It was sort of a teacher / carer who couldn't walk properly, and he would mock her from the bottom of the stairs. So his relationship with the staff is really, really weird. There's another who's like a mother to him he keeps talking about, and she becomes his mum. Again, not his fault. He has been, and I do have sympathy for him, he has been brought up in a really weird situation. Yes, he's had all the money in the world, and he's had all the success and riches and all that stuff, but I wouldn't wish that on most people, that kind of upbringing. So yeah, weird, awful thing. I think she is planning. I think that's what this release of the article was about. She will, if she wasn't already speaking to lawyers, there will be plenty of lawyers now talking to her. Admittedly, he doesn't say her name, but she's very easily recognizable by anybody who knows either her, him, or both of them. Put in the chat what you think. Do you think she's angling for a suing? Put a 1 if you do. If you think no, it's just that she's a bit wound up, she probably won't do that, and she can't, and whatever, it's fair enough for Prince Harry to write it. Put a 2. Ask me a few questions, because we can have a little chat about this. And another point, by the way, a final point on that, and it was actually made just before I went live, and it was, I saw Michelle K wrote this. I'm wondering how well the older woman comment in his book went over with M, that's Meghan. She's a year older than this older woman. And that is funny, isn't it? Because I think Harry's 38 and Meghan's 41. Of course, when you're like 18, it's a big difference when someone's 3 years older than you, and now not so much. But of course, Meghan is 40. She looks younger. He looks younger. He looks younger than 38, I think. They both look young. They've had quite nice lives, so fair enough. But this woman, Sasha Walpole, is 41. So the older woman is actually older than his own wife, Meghan. So that's an interesting point. What have we got here? We've got 1. We've got 2. So a lot of people think that she might not sue. We've got some 1s. It's a bit of a mix here. Got a comment here from Snowflake saying she was a drinking buddy, a friend amongst a group of friends. There's pictures of them. Remember, she was just a couple of years difference. Yeah, she was just a friend of theirs. And like I say, she's very, very easily recognizable. Got Mergy saying he ghosted her after. Well, there you go. Let me know if you've got any questions, and I'll keep chatting for a little bit just to... Right, what's this? Seriously, though, from Shay. Concerning Sasha Walpole, she's now out here posing for all sorts of photos with his book. Yeah, but because she didn't ask for that. Look, had you ever heard from Sasha Walpole before? That's the thing. How many of you had heard from her before? You never did. He mentioned her first, and even then she's waited months before saying anything. She's had 20 years to say something, and she didn't. She kept the privacy. And that is, honestly, I'm telling you, maybe don't spend the money on it. You can get a PDF somewhere online. I'm not encouraging you to do that, because it's, it's not allowed, but you can find it online or whatever. Read that book, right? Every line is dripping with frustration from Prince Harry and anger and resentment about people intruding on his life unnecessarily. Now, at least those people who may have intruded, okay, the paparazzi, the press, whatever, I do think it's awful, and I do think it's immoral, and I don't like how they intrude in people's lives, but at least those people sort of need it, a lot of them, right? These are not well-off people generally, the paps, and they're living from paycheck to paycheck. Not defending them. I don't think it's an honorable job in most cases. I know some people do. I don't like that. I don't like the big lenses going through people's homes, going through their bins and things like that. I don't like that as a job. But people got to make a living, and we all read it and we all watch it. So whatever. Prince Harry is one of the wealthiest people without having to ever do anything in his life in the world. So what possible reason does he have to, say these things about people, to give away who she is and potentially ruin her life while he swans around LA, and I've tried to give both sides a little bit about Prince Harry, and I've tried to say, but this was really out of order. Got a question from my friend Kim Silvio. Does Harry not care about other people's privacy? He has to be a narcissist, that would be. If someone did that to him, he would be the biggest victim. Thoughts? This is exactly what I think. Imagine that. It would be a whole passage like, oh, I just wanted to have a horsey lady event, and before I know it, it's all over the news, all over the newspaper. He wrote a book for the whole world to read. It's absolutely mad. Francoise Tabor, the people that he revealed in his book, could they sue? Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I think they could. I think they really could. It's very unlikely that King Charles III will sue. And sometimes, just privacy. This is the stuff we have to learn in sort of journalism school, so to speak. And sometimes just privacy is not enough to sue. But if it is something, and it depends on also the territory where you are, but typically if it is something that can affect a person's ability to earn, if you are somebody who works with horses for a living and probably works from paycheck to paycheck trying to get by, and then it is revealed that you did this, or at least a claim from Prince Harry that you did this, the only problem with it is it's true. She's admitted that. She's admitted it's true. So defamation doesn't count if the accusation is true. But there are different kinds. Not, you'd have to ask a lawyer, would have to get a lawyer on. There are other kinds of things you can sue about when it's an intrusion of privacy in that sense. Maybe someone in the comments could even tell us what that is. I'm sure there are. I'm sure I've heard about that. But she's even agreed that it happened. She says it's true. So there you go. Anthony Spurgeon, would Diana and Meghan have gotten along? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think they would have done. And I think they both suffer from the same levels of narcissism, personally. And I don't mean to speak ill of Diana, of course. And I don't think that Diana and Meghan are terrible people. I don't think they're awful. They or were awful people. I just think that these are two people who married into a pretty cold and unloving family, benefited from huge amounts of fame and infamy and the ability to basically do whatever you want. Meghan was elevated from C-list celebrity to, super A-star celebrity in the blink of an eye, just from dating and marrying Harry. So they hugely benefited, but didn't want to do the boring bits, which, look, fair enough. I wouldn't want to either, but then I wouldn't want to marry a royal. And I think even if you do, to then complain about how difficult your lives are, and if they both did this, Meghan and Diana, to complain all the time about how difficult things are, I think is a little bit tone deaf when, people around the world are trying to bills. So there you go. Anika says 2. This was when I was asking about the 1s and 2s. 2 if you don't think she'll sue. I think she should, but I get a feeling she won't. Could be wrong. It would be interesting, though. I do feel like she might be laying the foundations and testing things there. So we will see. Suzanne, what do you think Meghan and Harry have in common? What do they talk about? How the world is against them. Look, you must all have these things. I'm sure you guys know this, not just with relationships, but friends, family, whatever. You do end up talking together about one's parents, right? That's quite a common thing. Oh God, my mum did it, my dad did that, my uncles, it's often about family gossip and stuff like that. And they've got enough, and they'll feel very much that they're in the right about a lot of stuff. But it is an interesting thing to raise with regards to this particular subject, because Harry's revealed all this stuff about his first time with Sasha Walpole. Well, a lot of wives and husbands wouldn't be all that okay with this like proper romp kind of thing that Harry's describing. It really, this ultra masculine romp behind a whatever. Like, does she need this? Does she want Harry talking about this stuff? So I'd love to be a fly on the wall. Maybe she's very, very patient. I don't know. So we'll have to see. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out there, and we're going to watch this as it goes on, as the story develops. I've got an inkling she might be back, Sasha Walpole. She might be laying the foundations for suing. She's been pretty much doxed in a sense. However, it's not defamation because she's admitted that it's true, but it's certainly indecent. What do you think? Let me know. You've let me know in the chat. Love hearing you, seeing you there. Let me know what you want me to cover next as well. Comment down below.
How many people have had this done?
Depends on what. I don't think we have exact numbers, but it's, if we're talking about the drugs, it's, I mean, millions.
You're talking about hormone blockers?
Yeah.
Millions of kids have been on hormone blockers? Really?
I'm sure someone's going to fact check me on that, but my guess is that we're into the millions now at this point. Yeah, that would be my guess. I can say for double mastectomies, the most I read a report recently that there were over 1,000 done between 2016 and 2019, and when you compare that to how many were done between 2008 and 2015, it's a massive increase. And over 1,000 girls had gender-affirming double mastectomies in that time frame.
And when you say girls, you're talking about prepubescent?
Right, minors. And that's just up until 2019. And then we know that there's been this exponential increase with all this stuff year over year. So it's a lot. It's too many. Having this happen to one kid is way too many. It's a lot more than one. I actually think that this shouldn't be happening to.
It's a very small number, if that's right.
It says over the last 5 years, there were at least 4,780 adolescents who started puberty blockers and had a prior gender dysphoria diagnosis.
It says it's kind of undercounted, but that
would be a big undercounting.
Less than 1,000 people a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess, hundreds of thousands at this, but I could be wrong.
Million sounds great.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
The Media Matters will have fun with that clip.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily expect on the Joe Rogan podcast to hear a lot of fact checks. But I love that we haven't gotten the fact check yet. We're about to. Joe Rogan was actually asking follow-up questions. Like, he didn't really believe the numbers he was hearing. He was suspicious. He was actually thinking critically about it. I was very impressed by it, actually. And you can already tell what shaky ground Matt Walsh is on when he says, is it really in the millions? And Matt Walsh is like, well, someone's probably going to fact check me, but I guess it's in the millions. And I would just say, for someone who definitely thinks he's an intellectual, shouldn't you fact check it
yourself?
Like, before you go on other shows and make claims about it, before you make documentaries about it? Shouldn't it not be your guess that it's in the millions? Shouldn't it be a fact that you verified? Shouldn't your position on what should happen be informed by what has actually happened? Shouldn't the facts come first and your opinion on it come second?
I have a friend, and my friend's wife is a school teacher, and she told him that there was discussions in the school that a mother wanted to put a litter box in one of the bathrooms. And he told me this, and I talked about it on here, and then people were saying, that's not true, it's an internet rumor. So I contacted him again, and I said, tell me exactly what she said, and contact her and find out. She no longer works for that school, she works for another school. She contacted the other school, she didn't get a response. I don't think they actually did it. I think there was discussions about doing it because there was one particularly wacky mother, but it doesn't seem that there's any proof that they put a litter box in there. Out of all of my searching, I could only find one poster, one guy who said he had used a litter box. So this one person who was saying that he thought it was kinky and he liked to use it, he, they, it, them, whatever, like to use a litter box. So that was all I could find.
So that is as close as we're probably going to come to Joe Rogan admitting that he was wrong. Not really apologizing for misinforming literally millions of people about the kitty litter thing, literally months and months and months after it had been debunked over and over and over again. But he sort of admitted that he couldn't find any evidence of it, and he talked about it on his show. So I guess that's progress. Anna, what do you think?
I think that maybe doing the digging he did after making the statements on the show should have happened before he made the statements on the show. But you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it.
I saw, a lot of these Christians out there, I mean, they're really connected in with the whole Q thing. Have you noticed that?
Q and like QAnon, is that what you're saying?
Just Q.
What is Q?
17.
Can you explain it to people? What does that mean?
17.
17, like the letter Q?
Uh-huh. And that means 8, and then you reduce that down to 2 and reduce it to 1. It's a mystical thing.
For once, I have the exact same reaction as Joe Rogan to something happening.
Everything about this is like, okay, Cumer, like, she's so behind. She was so disconnected from the craziness of 4 or 5 years ago that 2 things happen. 1, she discovers this all anew, but 2, it's very obvious that like people in those last 5 years have been able to hone their like, first entree into discussions with Roseanne Barr in a way that doesn't seem as crazy as in the last 5 years we've all come to know it is. So someone I'm sure just went up to her and was like, in numerology, which is spiritual, which has roots in Judaism, where they would go through the Torah and say like the 5th letter here and the 9th letter here, and it would all come together. And it's kind of that kind of spirituality, which is so far removed from like blood-sucking baby killers who are grooming children so that they can live forever under a pizza joint.
Yeah.
But she's so far beyond that. And it does this weird, like, it's like predatory thing where you get someone like Roseanne Barr, who is so completely jaded by the whole situation. She got canceled or whatever. And the same with Joe Rogan. People were like, oh, they got mad at something stupid he said. And they can't believe that they themselves would be the problem. And they obviously know that someone else is the problem. And anyone who gives them an opportunity to say that other people are the problem, they chomp at that immediately. And it renders up to all of us stupid crap like this.
Can you speak ape? Trick question. You are an ape, so any type of speech coming out of a human is technically speaking ape. But I guess what I'm really asking is, can you speak the language that other apes speak? I guess that's kind of loaded too, isn't it? Do other apes have language, and does a language need to be spoken for it to be a language? I think the answer to the second question is a very obvious no, as humans all across the world utilize sign language to communicate. And not only that, but it seems as though there is a shared gestural repertoire regardless of where you go in the world. For instance, if I point at something, every human anywhere is going to understand that I'm trying to draw your attention to wherever it is that I'm pointing. Let's back up a minute. Language and gestures are both types of communication, put very simply, although they are very complicated types of communication. Still, Complicated communication, whether it's with gestures or vocalization, is pretty much the primate MO, because humans are not the only ones who do it. Researchers and science communicators alike tend to draw a pretty distinct line between language and the types of complicated communication employed by other primates, and I think there's a pretty good reason for doing this, namely that human language involves talking about symbolic things and also referring to events and objects through space and time, which is something that we haven't documented extensively in other primates yet. And I think there's no denying that human languages are really a special type of communication, right? We've taken vocalizations and just dialed them up to 11. However, I would be remiss to not take a moment and appreciate complex forms of communication that other primates utilize. I've talked about these many times on the channel, but it's especially relevant for the paper that we're going to be looking at today. The differences between human languages and the ways that other primates communicate seems to be one of degree rather than kind, as we'll see in a moment. So first of all, geladas, which are a type of cercopithecid monkey, an old world monkey that lives in the highlands of Ethiopia, they have forms of communication, sort of chittering and chattering at one another, that follow human linguistic laws, specifically Zipf's and Menzerath's laws of efficiency. Campbell's monkeys and vervet monkeys both utilize syntax in their communication. For example, one might make a call that means predator, and the subsequent call might mean from above, meaning it's a crowned eagle, or from below, meaning it's a leopard. The subsequent call is altering the meaning of the first, giving it more information. Now, interestingly enough, the previous three primates that I mentioned, Campbell's monkeys, vervets, and geladas, are all cercopithecids, so they're members of the Cercopithecidae family. They're not apes. Hominids are interesting in a different way, because hominids communicate with vocalizations, yes, but we also utilize gestures all across the board. And chimpanzees and bonobos are famous for this. These guys have a gestural repertoire of over 80 different signs. Now, I can't think of 80 gestures that could convey meaning innately to another human off the top of my head. But a very interesting study from a few years back noted that human toddlers actually have a lot of gestures that they utilize to convey meaning to their mom or their siblings or their dad. And the study found that human toddlers share about 90% of their gestural repertoire with chimpanzees and bonobos, the catalog at that time. So what's the difference between me and a baby? Why does a baby have such a heavy overlap with pannins and I don't? Well, it's because babies are pre-verbal. They can't talk yet. So this creates a really fascinating hypothetical, doesn't it? We have our old world monkeys, and the ones today are decently analogous in many ways to the stem catarrhs that we see before the appearance of the apes. They're utilizing things like simple vocalization, simple in the primate context, not in the mammal context. But once we see the arrival of the apes, these guys have dexterous wrists and hands and highly mobile fingers. This is originally so that they can maneuver through the trees, but this is accepted in order to communicate using gestures, which is facilitated by their growing brain case size thanks to increased pressures due to larger group sizes and maneuvering through a 3D environment. It's been argued that what happened with the hominins is we have a critter with an increasing brain case size with higher demands of sociality, maybe due in part to a change in its environment, coming from the trees, moving down onto the ground, as well as the advent of things like simple tools, and you apply it backwards onto this scaffold of gestural communication. Well, the second this thing is capable of vocalizing in a myriad of new different ways, you're just going to take that gestural scaffold and apply it onto verbal communication. And you have language. You might be wondering, why not just stick with gestures? And the answer is because, well, speech allows you to communicate across large distances. I can shout across the landscape. And that might be advantageous if you're beginning to hunt big game. So now we come back to our human baby, a little hominid that is pretty dang smart and getting smarter all the time as it takes in the world around it, but is incapable of speech. It is entirely nonverbal because its larynx hasn't descended. It needs to communicate somehow, and so it falls back on that gestural scaffold. Hence why we have a match of 90% with human babies and non-human apes. This is a sequence of events that is supported by the fossil record and a lot of the genes that we've sequenced in relation to language, as well as the morphology and physiology of modern hominids and cercopithecids alike. But it leads to a really interesting question. What happened to adult humans' ability to interpret these gestures? What if we can still do it? Well, that's exactly what Graham and Hobader attempted to figure out in their recently published paper titled Towards a Great Ape Dictionary, Inexperienced Humans Understand Common Non-Human Ape Gestures. So let's dig into this because I think it's really fascinating. As always with these, we'll read the abstract first and pick our way through the paper. They say, in the comparative study of human and non-human communication, ape gesturing provided the first demonstrations of flexible, intentional communication outside of human language. Rich repertoires of these gestures have been described in all ape species bar one, us. Now, I think this is interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, there are innate human gestures that are appreciated across all human populations. I think what the authors are talking about here is sort of a shared large system of gestural communication that doesn't need to be taught. I think it's the size here that they're referring to. They go on, given that the majority of great ape gestural signals are shared and their form appears biologically inherited, this creates a conundrum. Where did the ape gestures go in human communication? Now, they're going to talk about this a little bit later because obviously I've read the paper already, but they mention the fact that human toddlers can appreciate this type of gestural communication system. So where does it go in adults is really the question that they're asking here. Here we test human recognition and understanding of 10 of the most frequently used ape gestures. We crowdsourced from 5,656 participants through an online game, which required them to select the meaning of gestures in 20 videos. We show that humans may retain an understanding of ape gestural communication, either directly inherited or part of a more general cognition, across gesture types and gesture meanings, with information on communicative context providing only a marginal improvement in success. By assessing comprehension rather than production, we accessed part of the great ape gestural repertoire for the first time in adult humans. So that's the critical portion right there. Cognitive access to an ancestral system of gesture appears to have been retained after our divergence from other apes, drawing deep evolutionary continuity between their communication and our own. So that's a lot. Let's get into it. Okay, so we'll jump around here and there. This first little bit talks about how most scientists and philosophers alike consider the apparent discontinuity between human language and non-human communication as this kind of evolutionary puzzle. The author's going to say more and more research has started to unveil the deep phylogenetic roots of language. So what we're looking at with modern language is kind of a terminal, horizontal slice of things. But this has been a long time coming, at least according to the work that we've done so far looking at other primates and the types of communication they use. So the authors specify here that there is definitely a difference between the types of sort of communication that a lot of other animals utilize, which tends to be like response stimulus, and they note that humans do this too. For example, when you pick up a pan that's too hot, you're going to involuntarily yelp. You don't think to yourself, I would like to convey that this pan is hot to everyone else. And they typically contextualize this here as being like alarm calls, like those vervets that are talking about seeing a predator from the ground or from the air. Yeah, they are communicating to one another, but they're seeing a predator and it's like, oh my god, there's an eagle. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily how might I best convey this information to my peers, which is something that humans tend to do. They contextualize this by saying human language's intentional nature takes it beyond sharing information. It communicates meaning. This fundamental property is rarely observed in other species, and when it is typically restricted to one or two signals used in highly specified ways. The papers that they cite here have to do with signaling and receiving in communication. I believe they're talking mostly about the great apes, but they might include like cetaceans and proboscideans, so elephants and things like that in there. They move on to say, strikingly, great ape gestures are used in this language-like way. Rich systems of over 80 signals deployed communicate everyday goals, and ape gesturing has been suggested to be an important scaffold in the evolution of human language. Great ape repertoire shows substantial overlap across species, including overlap among ape species more distantly related than chimpanzees, bonobos, and humans. So they're talking about like orangs and gorillas there. As a result, we would expect humans to retain the use of this system of ape gestural communication, but to date, the use of naturalistic ape gestures appear to be absent in human communication. Humans are highly gestural, so this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, deploying decidic, iconic, conventional, and co-speech cosign among other types of gestures. However, this itself is part of what makes studying gestural overlap between adult humans and other apes challenging. Gestures shared with other apes may be masked by the myriad of ways that humans signal with their hands and bodies. They talk about pointing and things like that. And they do appreciate sort of what we talked about earlier down here. They say recent studies suggested that pre-verbal 1 to 2 year old human children and infants, were found to deploy over 50 gestures from the ape repertoire. Given the available movement of body parts, there are well over 1,000 potential gestures that could be produced with the ape body, but apes only use approximately 12% of these. Thus, and this is a critical portion of their hypothesis here, any overlap between species is very unlikely to be trivial. Here, we provide the first test of the hypothesis that language competent adult humans still share access to this family-typical great ape gesture. So, they're looking at great ape gestures, which there's a lot of different shared gestures amongst chimps, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans. And indeed, in chimps and bonobos at least, there is a 90%, it's 89, but I usually just round up because it's a cooler sounding number. 90% of that gestural overlap occurs with those panins and with human children. So the question is, how much overlap exists between panins and adult humans? These authors are suggesting that this is a difficult question to answer, in part because of human masking that happens basically because humans are really flexible and adaptable. Our gestures might not be a one-to-one for the other great apes because of context, language, culture, a myriad of different things. So they decide to take it in the opposite way. Can humans interpret the gestures of other apes? Okay, so what did they do? How did they actually test this? We selected the 10 most common gesture types for which we were previously able to confirm meaning in both chimps and bonobos, determined by the recipient responses that consistently satisfy the signaler. Okay, so this is really important, right? What they've done. They picked the 10 most common gestures for which we know the meaning of through frequent observation in chimps and bonobos. So this way we can accurately test whether or not humans are even accurately interpreting the signals, one, but they've also picked the most common types, which, presumably should be the easiest for humans to understand, despite that sort of distant divergence in the past. Chimpanzees and bonobos are our closest living relatives. We are also theirs, with the split of humans more recent than the last common ancestor shared between pan and gorilla. So they're basically noting that this is also kind of ideal to pick chimps and bonobos because they're our closest living relatives and we are theirs. There should be more overlap there than there is between chimps and gorillas or chimps and bonobos versus orangutans. They also note here that the majority of the gesture types, 6 of the chimp and 7 of the bonobo, have like one meaning, whereas some of them could have multiple meanings. These were sort of cataloged as ambiguous gesture types. Participants viewed one instance in which the correct outcome was the primary meaning and one instance where the correct outcome was the alternate meaning. And in both cases, were given primary and alternate meanings as potential answers. Here's another important portion. It's multiple choice. They're not doing like written response. What does the chimpanzee mean when it does this and sticks its hand out? Okay, so what were the results? So they had a lot of participants overall, 17,751 people, but they specifically looked at 5,656 participants who completed all of the videos. So I guess that sort of keeps continuity within the experiment. Participants correctly interpreted the meanings of chimpanzee and bonobo gestures with or without contextual information, with a success rate of 57.3% plus or minus 11.9%. So that is high, actually. Okay, so here's our first figure that sort of exemplifies that 57 plus or minus 11%. The success is on the y-axis, with 1 being 100% and 0 being 0%, and on the x-axis we see the gestures, right? And then they are color-coded as ambiguous or unambiguous based off of whether more than one meaning could be sort of gleaned from that gesture. And looking at this, the reason why I say that 57 plus or minus 11% is high is because like a lot of these gestures aren't really relevant to humans, right? Things like present genital. This is something that, females will typically do when they are tumescent, like when they're in estrus. Humans don't have estrus. Editing Erica here. Humans obviously have estrus. I meant we have concealed ovulation, so our estrus isn't visible externally to one another, right? And yet we're getting a pretty high upper end of the of the gesture interpretation there. Also, things like climbing on one's back, right? Present climb. This is something that human kids don't do anymore. So this is something that, like, we haven't also done for a long time, right? Humans have not been persistent climbers having their kids on our back for like maybe 2 million years, maybe even older. The fact that we can still interpret this many, almost Panin-specific gestures is really interesting and suggests that that shared appreciation for those innate gestures is very old indeed. Let's keep reading. They say across gesture types, the addition of information on behavioral context had, at best, marginal positive effect on participant success. More specifically, only the interaction between context and ambiguity showed any possible effect, with an again weak, non-significant trend towards improved participant success, where gesture meaning was classed as ambiguous and information on context was available. Participants showed a small but significant increase in confidence in their responses for gestures with a single correct meaning, than for ambiguous gestures. So this little paragraph packs a lot of info, and it's really interesting, important information at that. The fact that context doesn't significantly impact the participant's success most of the time is fascinating, because that suggests, again, that this is something rather innate, not something that is learned. Like, I see a chimpanzee do that, I access my human knowledge of what chimpanzees do and what I know about them, and then I interpret the gestures. Seems as if most of the time humans look at it and they're like, oh, of course, this means XYZ, accessing our 7-million-year-old ancient dictionary of ape gestures. Interestingly enough, confidence was higher as well for non-ambiguous gestures, right? These participants were inexperienced. They don't know which gestures are ambiguous and which ones are classified as unambiguous. The fact that they are more hesitant for the ambiguous rather than unambiguous gestures means, again, on some level, they know that just as if they were a chimp, right? Some of these gestures could mean one or two things, and in the ancient Miocene landscape, you're going to want to get that right. So you're going to be less confident if there are more options than if you know culturally, innately, that there is only one. That's really cool that we still retain that confidence level on ambiguous versus unambiguous. They go on and say, within ambiguous gestures, where participants failed to select the correct meaning for this specific instance of communication, results were mixed as to whether they were more likely to select the secondary meaning for the gesture than an incorrect meaning not associated with the gesture type. In 3 out of 5 gesture types, participants did not select the alternative meaning significantly above chance. Notably, object shake gesture is the only gesture for which participants failed to assign either the primary or alternate meaning. That's also interesting because going back up to the methods section, object shake is used to initiate copulation, meaning let's have sex. Isn't it interesting that one of the more difficult interpretations, gestures for humans to interpret, is about copulation in a species that is fission, fusion, and polygamous? This kind of falls a little bit in line with the hypothesis that pretty early on in hominins, we become pair bonded and relatively monogamous, for which an object shake gesture in a group, right, which is the context in which this gesture exists, would kind of cease to have meaning, because you don't need to gesture to your mate, the individual who you're, at least in this case, ostensibly the only one you're having intercourse with. And we're going to read the full discussion because it's not very long. It's just these 3 paragraphs, stopping and adding, thoughts as we go. Until now, humans have presented a problematic gap in the study of great ape gesture, with comparative observational methods limited to early development because of the feasibility of observing gesture production in humans after the onset of language. By deploying a playback method that flips the paradigm for the study of gesture production to gesture comprehension, we have accessed great ape gestural communication in adult humans for the first time. Participants were substantially above chance at correctly assigning the correct meaning to chimpanzee and bonobo gestures across types, suggesting that humans may have retained their understanding of the core features of a gestural system present in our last common ancestor with the pangenus 6 to 7 million years ago. This ability was present across both the functionally more fixed and the flexible gestures that are deployed with more than one meaning. Participants were highly successful at detecting meaning for which gestures were used in the specific instance of communication that they saw. Where gesture had alternate meanings, these were also detected more often than chance in two gesture types. That our participants were able to predict and interpret primates' signal complements the recent findings that suggest humans may be able to perceive effective cues in primate vocalization. So this is the idea that like this might also apply to vocalizations, not just gestures, which kind of blows my mind a little bit. And again, interestingly enough, the only gesture that we consistently have failed is one that is pretty innate to the mating system and social system type exhibited by canins. They go on to say the underlying mechanism that makes gestural communication comprehensible across great ape species, now including humans, remains unsolved. Human use of gesture, as intertwined with language in diverse ways, makes detecting gesture types from the ape repertoire difficult. It remains unknown whether the great ape repertoire itself is biologically inherited, or whether apes, now including humans, share an underlying ability to produce and interpret naturally meaningful signals that are mutually understandable because of a general intelligence and shared body plans with social goals. So is it innate and phylogenetic, or is what is innate and phylogenetic our body plan and intelligence? And that itself facilitates the understanding of gestures. This is the question. They say these are not the only possible explanations. For example, gestures could be biologically inherited in non-human apes, but understood by humans through other cognitive mechanisms. We need to continue to develop innovative methods such as these video playbacks to address remaining unknowns. I think this is unlikely that they are inherited biologically in non-human apes, but understood by humans through kind of our big brains, because little babies can do it. Right, little babies, well, we don't know that they comprehend them, but they innately utilize them. And they finish by saying, our findings add a substantial new thread of evidence to the continuity of communication throughout our hominid lineage, and we propose that this novel citizen science playback approach will become a powerful and fruitful tool for bridging gaps in the study of comparative communication. Personally, I'm not very surprised by these results at all, but I am surprised by sort of the scope of the results. Obviously, or I guess it seems obvious, to me anyways, we should share gestures with other animals that we're closely related to, and specifically that have the dexterous mobile hands that we have. But the fact that the canins and humans, that we share so much of a gestural overlap, and that humans even are in our adult form can interpret the gestures of these closely related hominids to us, even in the context of their social systems and their dominance hierarchies, not our own, is very interesting indeed, and not something that I would at all thought would be the case. I think a lot of the naysayers to this study are going to appeal to like human inference and say that humans, of course humans can infer what other apes mean when they utilize certain gestures. We're cognitive, and culturally we see apes all the time doing things in cartoons and TV shows and things like that. But I think if you hear that from someone, they probably haven't read the paper, because one, the gestures are pretty convoluted. It's not as simple as like pointing at something or holding your hand out to mean, I want this. These are pretty specific gestures, and indeed many of them are specific to chimps. And to take it to the next level, right, they used inexperienced human participants, right? And like, I hate to burst the bubble of some of the folks who might be watching this, but it's a hard pill to swallow. Most people don't know very much about other apes or primates in general. So I would very much enjoy, I would enjoy presenting this test to like my students, and I would like to see if they could interpret it as well. The bottom line is, as apes, as hominids, we are indeed included in the shared gestural repertoire across our family, and not just in our infancy or during our sort of toddlerhood, but into adulthood as well. And I think this quite nicely presents how deep these shared similarities are, all the way down to our communication style through our development. A really interesting test would be if you could somehow figure out how to administer this to gorillas and see if gorillas perform better or worse than human children, or better or worse than human adults. But I don't really even know how you would do that. Anyways, my gentle and of course very modern apes, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoy this kind of content, please consider supporting me by subscribing, leaving a like, leaving a comment, or head on over to my Patreon if you want to do so monetarily. Obviously everything helps, and I don't think I haven't noticed that more people are joining the Patreon now that I've started asking. In the meantime, please do take care of yourselves.
Yeah, that was a horrific night, as you can imagine. You know, there's many nuances and.
In his first major interview since the incident at the Oscars, Will Smith finally opens up to Trevor Noah on The Daily Show about what was going on through his head that evening. But what do his body language, facial expressions, and most importantly, word choice reveal? Is he being truthful in regards to how he feels about this incident, or is there more to the story? What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey, and I use my degree in sociology and psychology, my certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and over 10 years' experience as an award-winning mentalist to teach people practical psychology and behavioral analysis on stages and television shows all over the world. This week's video has been at the top of my to-do list for quite some time now. A couple of weeks ago, Will Smith went on The Daily Show to talk to Trevor Noah, and for the first time he was public.
It's almost 2:30 a.m. I think I'm going to call it a night. Thank you to whomever is lurking in the background. And I might see you tomorrow night again. Have a good night. Bye.